Welcome to the LongView with Pensacola Mayor D.C. Reeves. This is where we expand on news, views, what ifs, and what Pensacola could be for future generations. Take a seat and enjoy the LongView.
Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Shannon Nickinson, the Public Information Officer at the City of Pensacola, and I'm here with the mayor, as always. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, glad to be here and talk about important issues.
Yes, for sure. Well, we do have a big important issue. First up off the table, once we're getting you your vegetables this week, friends. Here we go. But the conversation is really important, and it's all around housing and what's affordable versus what's attainable, and really what that looks like in the real world in terms of what that looks like for the business world and what that looks like for government. And then I would really like to share some wins that our wonderful housing department has worked super hard on to really make a difference in the way that we are able to, and then how we leverage that into partnerships that can make an even bigger impact in the community.
Yeah, obviously this is the most important affordability issue now, where affordability is an issue both with utility bills, with groceries and everything else. But the anchor of that is housing. And I think there's really two important factors when it comes to discussing housing. And these are conversations we have around with mayors and local governments around the country. Number one is it's a difficult conversation to talk about, not because of its importance. That's easy. The difficult part is it means something different to everybody. And I was at a talk at Harvard actually, and they were talking about what are the big challenges. And one of them was just purely in the communication aspect. And what I said was, man, in a perfect world, we could wave our magic wand and there could be like different colors of housing, knowing we need all the colors. We need homeless transitional. We need workforce for police and fire and first responders.
Teachers, everybody.
We need people at 60% AMI, and that's a good word takeaway for everybody, AMI. People are like, well, what is affordable? There's actually a state definition that defines what is deemed affordable and gets certain credits and subsidies. And so, you can't blame folks because like we do with every facet of our lives, we zone in and we narrow down to what impacts us. So someone who can afford $1,800 a month in rent is going to have one definition of affordable, and it's going to probably be around $1,800. And if it's somebody that can afford $1,000 in rent, it's going to be around $1,000. And so I think it's our job at the city and at governments, counties, states, it's our job to attack at every level. There is no one magic level of as long as we have 80% AMI housing, that's going to solve all of our problems. Yeah. It won't. And that's why this continues to be a long multi-year issue that every city is going to be dealing with now and into the foreseeable future until you start to have enough inventory at every one of those colors, at every one of those phases. You're really not going to be able to say that you've got it solved. And so that's why I think, and we'll talk about, at City of Pensacola, I think our track record in 3 years is we've been attacking it at all fronts, from trying to encourage market rate investment. We're seeing more of that in our city, which is a good thing. Yeah. Not only is it market rate investment, it also is property tax that helps fund some of the other things. Mm-hmm. We've done pallet shelters with some of our resources within the unhoused community that are providing shelter as we speak right now for people that otherwise wouldn't have it. And so that's why it seems like such a tough nut to crack, because one, it is. And two is because the layers
it would have been fixed.
Right, exactly. And that's what, a lot of cities say is if it was not complex, then we wouldn't be discussing it as an issue. But certainly rest assured our city is attacking it at every one of those colors, at every one of those levels. And we've done it aggressively in these last 3 years, certainly more so than probably in terms of our how aggressive we've gotten in trying to find different solutions at different levels, probably the most aggressive that our city's ever been.
I think that it's also important in that conversation. You mentioned that there are layers to this problem, right?
Yes.
What your affordable may not be my affordable, may not be someone else's affordable, and that means that there's no magic bullet. I want to give a shout out to our housing team because I think they have made a lot of really nice progress in attacking a couple different lower rungs of that ladder.
Yeah.
Definitely the Home Investment Partnership Program and the State Housing Initiative Partnerships. Those are two programs that we've done a lot of press lately, actually, with some homeowners. The Donson family, we
Yep.
just helped rebuild a house for them and
Over off 8th Avenue.
yeah, their grandchildren, Stacy Hernandez, Eli Rushing, and of course Dorothy Woodard. Those are just 4 families that we were able to share their stories and learn more about what each of those investment programs sort of meant to them. So sometimes when a problem seems so big, you think, well, how does 4 houses for 4 families help when they're exponentially so much more? But talk about why those smaller steps matter.
Yeah, of course, and you're right. Housing is that department of interesting story. Right when I started, we asked on the Haas Center survey to all our city residents. We said, "Give us your feeling about working with housing." Well, it wasn't clear. It was right after I got elected. It wasn't clear that it meant the housing department at the city. It was just like housing in general. And
like, how do you like your realtor?
Right. Or just like your housing affordability,
Right.
And of course it's a hot button issue. And so we made clear to, not surprisingly, the next year, their approval rating went up by like 50 points once we were saying, no, what we're talking about is tell us about your interactions with the city housing department that have been very positive. And those examples, I mean, the 3 scattered site partnerships we did with the Community Land Trust and the Home Builders Association, those are 3 pieces of property that had been talked about for years to even put one house on. And now we've got houses and families at all 3. These tear down and rebuilds that we do are much deserved. And again, that's a family. And in some cases, people raising children, young children in a home that is now secure and stable and structurally sound. And that's what these efforts are for, is not every one of these things. We can talk about Baptist and how we can try to attack this at scale, but you got to start eating the elephant somewhere, and we just know that that housing is going to always be for the next 4 years and the next 4 years. It's always going to be something that we need to get after. And I think it goes. One was the first color analogy I gave, but I think the second major understanding of why big and small projects matter, and that we really take the shotgun fire approach at this, is that every single affordability question around housing requires a subsidy. That means someone else other than the person building it, whether that's the federal government, the state government, the local government, philanthropy. You see that in some cities, the business community. I mean, it doesn't really matter who it comes from. Most naturally, it comes from the government. But if a house costs $100 to build, you can't sell it for $80 and expect that the builder's just going to do that.
Sure.
That means the subsidy's got to come from somewhere else. And so we'll talk about more of the projects about vacant land that the city's acquiring, the motor lodge that we're requiring to be affordable housing. Well, because that dirt, that land becomes the subsidy. And versus, city governments are cash strapped, and maybe even more so here in the next couple of months. There is not a bank account of funds sitting around in any city in America that maybe at the largest populations, but any city our size, there is not a multi-million-dollar fund recurring sitting around that you can just subsidize construction. You've got to go figure out how to do it. And so I think the smartest way is to acquire appreciating assets like ground, like dirt, where then now as the city you get to say, hey, great, if you're willing to build homes for veterans, homes for police and fire, transitional homes, whatever the case may be, then we can now utilize that subsidy we have, which is the dirt itself, and say, hey, we'll throw this in if you'll ensure that you increase quality of life for all of these people. And so that's why little projects matter. Those are a subsidy. I mean, those are federal funds, those are state funds that come in and really drastically increase the quality of life for Pensacolians.
You mentioned something a little bit earlier that I thought was interesting, that we were in our housing journey as a city, we were actually land poor, which is something that some of your mayor colleagues don't have that. They have the opposite. They're land rich without enough folks to fill the space. But talk a little bit about why again, a perception that people have perhaps is
that
the
we've got
city
all
has
this land
all
around.
this
Yeah.
land, all this land in air quotes that we're sitting on.
We really don't. I worked with Commissioner May to get 14 parcels that were in the city. Remember, when something's foreclosed on, so why many cities in America end up with actually having a pretty good amount of land to leverage is because when something is foreclosed upon, it may be different rules in the state of Florida, or at least in Escambia County. Those default to the county, including in historically inside the city limits, which is kind of an outlier. What we did is I worked with Commissioner May and say, hey, you've got dozens of lots that you're trying to get housing built on, and you've got your own efforts for that. Let us try to attack this problem at scale and more aggressively. And so we worked with them to get 14 new scattered site parcels. We're going to talk about that with the Community Land Trust as well. But it's why we got active in the Motor Lodge. It's why we've gotten active with Baptist Hospital. And the biggest question I get on Baptist Hospital is, hey, the hospital, that's not the city's responsibility to knock down. That's not, Baptist can do that or someone else can do that. Two problems. One, we could sit and stare at it for the next 15 or 20 years, which is what many cities actually end up doing.
Yeah.
And secondly is it gives us 38 leverageable acres to increase quality of life for every one of our residents, whether that's healthcare, that's food access, that's education, and certainly housing is going to be part of that conversation as we move forward. We're actually, as we sit here right now, finalizing the RFP for our community engagement process for Baptist. So we had a part of our strategy these last few years has been, well, let's go find smart ways through grant funding, which is another big way that we've gotten a lot of this property.
Sure.
This isn't just cash coming out of the general fund. This is us going and applying for grant money and then saying, hey, great, let's use these grant funds to acquire property. And then the property becomes the poker chip, so to speak, to put into the deal that allows us to build workforce housing. And so that's why the understanding that every single affordability discussion in housing always should start with question number one: who's paying the subsidy? Right, because there's going to be one, and if there wasn't one, that we would have tens of thousands of units that were affordable. Because if there was money to be made on it conventionally without a subsidy, then there'd already be the private market doing that, and so the private market does build private market rate apartments, condos,
which
houses.
Certainly does help the supply. I mean, it certainly helps the supply issue, right? That's pressure taken off the system somewhere else.
That it is, and to nerd out on that, on a data point on that, even more detailed is, for it when you look at why you need to attack it at all levels, is that the housing actually creates, for every 100 market rate units built in a city, within 2.5 years, 41 affordable units organically become available. And that's because of migration, of basically churn.
People are moving up.
That's right. So, but they can't move up if there's nothing to move up to. So when someone proverbially rolls their eyes and says, well, wait, market rate housing, how does that impact the attainable housing stock, the workforce housing stock at all? Well, someone might be in a unit that a paramedic or a firefighter or a police officer can afford, and they may be able to afford more, but if there's nowhere to go, then you're going to stay in that house, but you're not going to just give it up with no plans to go somewhere else. So it does. Market rate housing on its own absolutely does not solve the entire spectrum. You've got to get intentional, and that's what we've done with Baptist, with Motor Lodge, with the two PACES projects, the 200 units that are under construction right now, 100 senior, 100 family. So that when we go back and say shotgun approach, that's what we mean is we've got to be looking at pallet shelters for homeless transitional. We've got to be looking at affordable, truly 60 to 80% AMI affordable like we are at the Motor Lodge. We've got to be doing Community Land Trust, Habitat for Humanity partnerships, and we've got to be fostering market rate development, and we've got to be doing Baptist. So that is
a lot of balls in the air, Mayor.
That's right. And so you have to look at how you attack the housing crisis in totality. You can't look at it, and I think it's just our human nature. There's one headline in the newspaper about this one particular thing, and it says, well, wait, what about all the other things? And so that's why I think every city should attack it that way, as well as with the Land Development Code, which we're also underway with now.
Are we, do we benefit from being the size that we are as a city? I imagine a larger city is less nimble, perhaps, is less partnership oriented. It's not like they wouldn't work with partners, but a city our size has the benefit, I think, of being able to reach out and touch different segments of the business community or the philanthropy community. That may be it may be harder in
I was going to say,
city.
no, I could see it both ways. I think you can get more attention and a little more critical mass at the hyper local level around a thing like Baptist, for example, where kind of you may like one idea better than another idea, but we all generally understand the same direction we're going, which is let's leverage this property to increase quality of life across these many different sectors. And so we're looking forward to that. I would say one advantage that bigger cities have is there are more people who are in the business of attainable housing partnerships, capital to do those projects. So I would say there's a scalability at a larger city level that we probably don't see as much of. Many people that are coming in and doing PACES has come in. Many people that inquire have looked at different projects here or have done them here. Typically, are coming in from somewhere else. It's not usually a local homegrown. When you're talking about the companies who specialize in building senior, 100 senior units, 100 family units, they know how to make the subsidies work. And one big one is the 4% and 9% tax credits that come through that will happen at the PACES projects. And if you aren't aware, if you look up those Kufrian Place is a good. If you just Google that, you can look at Kufrian Manor. They were able to get a 9% deal and a 4% deal that becomes the subsidy that we talked about earlier.
Right.
So they're able to build these high quality units, offer them as a requirement of those tax credits at a certain price. And so, but even the city had to put up about $464,000 of funds as a match for them to be able to earn those credits. And those credits are extremely, extremely competitive and take many, many, many years to build. So even some of our elected officials, I think, get confused sometimes on, hey, we bought this property. Why isn't somebody building it? Well, for these organizations that build affordable housing, they have to be able to find the subsidy somewhere to make it work. And many times it's a very competitive application process that takes several years. And for example, the two PACES projects going into Baptist, I think they applied for tax credit project maybe 5-6 years before they actually got them. And without getting into too grave detail, the help that they got was they were able to have a bucket of money post Hurricane Sally that only Escambia and Santa Rosa County applicants could get. When it was statewide, there were 46 applications for a 9% tax credit deal. Only 8 got funded. So that is what takes time. Is fine. Ultimately, the funnel ends at the same place. How do you find the subsidy to offset building high quality units at an affordable rate for everybody?
And I imagine that the roadside is littered with well-intended but not experienced enough developers or projects who felt like some elected officials might feel like, well, we have this, let's get to building it. It's not quite that easy, and that level of expertise is important.
It is. And I'll give another example that we have on our plate right now, which is we were able to get a military grant actually for about $700,000 to acquire property to build housing for NAS Pensacola ultimately. And so that means that you have to have a certain level of number of units at a certain price. So it's got to be dedicated to that. But that's an example of a subsidy. If we can spend $700,000 and say, okay, great, we'll put in $700,000. Tell us what you'll give our veteran community for that.
Yeah.
How many units, at what price, all of that. Well, that's great. That didn't come from city taxpayer money. That came from another. That subsidy came from somewhere else. And so we keep our head on a swivel. Most of the money that we've spent in housing right now is grant funded. It's from somewhere else. Because again, we don't have that type of funds at a city our size to invest at a recurring level. But it is our job to shake every tree and figure out where all of these funds are. And so, but if you keep that fundamental thought of we need housing affordability. Where's the subsidy going to come from? Then it's a little more clear to understand kind of how everything works and what you need to do and why sometimes a couple of these projects are going to take a little longer than it would be just somebody building a house on a residential lot that they own.
The Community Land Trust Partnership is,
Yes.
if we could spend a little time on that,
Yeah.
because I think it's a really innovative and important way that we try to guarantee affordability in perpetuity.
That's right.
Because affordability at the moment of development does not mean things won't always be the same price in 5 or 10 or 15
That's
years,
right.
perhaps, that they were when we first invested in them. And it can make it seem like affordability is fleeting.
That's right. Well, and most, if you look back in the decades of history of subsidies for affordable housing, most have a timeline on them. So
Right.
it could be, it depends. So it could be 50 years, it could be 30 years, it could be 10 years. I think at one point the city several years ago was considering doing a lottery for building a house, and then as long as you didn't you couldn't sell it for 5 years, and then after that though. Whoever won that lottery, it was great. You might have bought it for $250, but then when you turn around and sell it for $600, well, then now we've just lost it
Right.
in terms of affordability for the next Pensacolians that want to have it. So I really love the CLT, the Community Land Trust approach to this, and that's why you hear us say, "Hey, we built the first permanently affordable homes in the history of the city," because we have not had that inside the city limits previous to these last few years. The Malcolm Young
The Malcolm
site
Young
will be
project, for sure.
nine units that will be permanently affordable. 3 have families in them right now. Another 14 scattered sites that we're discussing with CLT right now, and our friends and Sam Young does a great job. Actually, Betsy, our housing director, used to work for Sam and has a very good understanding of that program.
Mm-hmm.
But I love it because it allows you to start building generational wealth. It's a perfect hybrid between renting and owning.
Sure.
So the problem with owning is you got to show up with 20% many times. Even with some programs, you got to show up with a big chunk of money that many Pensacolians can't afford, $25,000 or $30,000.
Well, that's hard to gather. It's hard to gather that down payment when you're paying rent at the rate of somebody else's mortgage,
or $4 a gallon for gas, or the price of
how
eggs
much
and
for
everything
eggs,
else.
yeah.
And so the amount of money you have to bring to closing is such a barrier for Pensacolians that here in this with the CLT setup, and I won't dare explain it as concisely or as well as Sam does. I would certainly recommend everybody looking it up, the Community Land Trust model. But ultimately, it's a hybrid because you don't have to come with as much money to closing. If you live in the house for, let's say it's 5 years or 8 years, and then you turn around and sell it, you can only sell it for whatever is now deemed affordable. So it will appreciate.
Right.
And then when you do sell it, you get all of your principal money back, and then you get some of that upside. You don't get the full thing, but you also didn't have to pay the full
When you
freight
got in the door.
up front. So sometimes people get confused and say, well, wait a second, isn't that hindering somebody's ability to build wealth? Well, not really, because that person may not have been able to, if they qualified for a CLT home, they did not have the ability to bring $30,000 to a closing. So the fact that they're in a home that they own, they could stay in as long as they want.
Yeah.
And then even if they decide to leave that home and maybe go do something more conventional, that they built a little nest egg to be able to go do that, I think is a great win. And most importantly, when that person leaves, the next family has to income qualify, and that house stays at that same affordable rate. So to be able to say for 99 years that 9 houses at Malcolm Young are going to do that, the 3 that are already scattered sites, and maybe many, many more to come.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge win for permanent affordability within our city, and certainly unprecedented.
What's going on? What's the latest with Malcolm Young? We got any news we can drop?
Well, I think we're on the final bits of paperwork, and I've seen some renderings and designs, and this will be kind of unprecedented for. Normally, it's been just single family homes on single sites, and so this is more of a multifamily setup. Again, that was all in the spirit of trying to attack affordability at scale, and not try to do it one at a time, but did do it slightly larger than that. So I know we're getting very, very close to starting to see some dirt moving over there. Again, great relationship with Sam, and our city attorney's office is working hard. So, this year we should see some final movement, and then of course construction early next year.
Yeah, that'll be great.
I know, excited
So
for it.
exciting.
Excited for it.
All right, so then the big sort of, $64,000 housing question that we now have on the table is what comes in the wake of Baptist, the Legacy Baptist Campus,
Yes.
as we like to call it. I know you shared that Paces is already doing some housing units on the what used to be the parking lot basically, of the hospital.
That's right.
But that is their property. What comes of what was in the footprint of the hospital is a little bit yet to be determined, but we are kind of close to something on that.
So this is our greatest in generations, our greatest ability at the City of Pensacola to create housing affordability at scale with 38 acres of leverageable property. So it was 50 acres. The other 12 is Paces. So again, Google that if you haven't heard it. Paces is going to be 100 senior units, all affordable, and 100 family units, all affordable. So that is 200 units right there. And again, in partnership with the City of Pensacola and in partnership with Baptist Hospital. They sold those those 12 acres for $2.9 million. They took that $2.9 million and put it into the demolition. So in a way, we are kind of three-way partners in that as we tried to get the demolition complete.
Right.
But Steve Bean and his team at Paces have been great partners. They've had community outreach meetings. So that's the first thing you'll see. So when you start to see something building and saying, hey, wait a second, I didn't hear about that.
I didn't hear about that.
That was property purchased by Paces from Baptist Hospital, and we're very excited to have 200 affordable units coming in. For now, 38 acres, I'm just excited to finally get started with the community engagement conversation. Now, I do feel like if you go back and study, you can go back to 2015. If you go back and study what our citizens have said they want to happen in and around that campus, there's really 4 key pillars to that. I mentioned them earlier. 1 is housing.
Yep.
2 is healthcare opportunity, and we've worked on that some in the interim. 1 is education. And 1 is food access, whether that be grocery, restaurant, something.
Right,
For many people in the surrounding neighborhood, the cafeteria was the restaurant at the Legacy Baptist Hospital site. So
shout out to those ladies who made a fantastic lunch over there.
Yeah, my mom was a social worker at Baptist. Worked, I think it was the 4th floor. We rode out Hurricane Opal, I think, up there. So I ate at that cafeteria for many days in 1995, as well as all of the years that she worked there. So very familiar with the area and with that, at least the old building.
Yeah.
And so bottom line is we know that those 4 things need to be addressed in some way. And I'm really excited to hear from the community when we get this community engagement representative on is what does that ratio of the pie look like? Is it 25 this, 50 that, 10 that? I think to really start to drill, we know those 4 things, and there'll be other ideas. There might job opportunity. That's one that's come up. Do we want to have educational opportunity that's maybe not just early childhood education or middle school education, but university education? Do we want that on site? So lots of exciting conversation, to come up at the Baptist campus. And so we're finally now, I believe, in the next hours or days, we'll have a community engagement specialist picked to work with us. And you'll start to see us even more and more start to say, okay, demolition's underway. What do we want to do next? So I think there's an enormous opportunity in housing for us there, bigger than maybe our city's ever had, and excited for what's to come.
And also, I would like to do a little shout out to our partners at Community Health Northwest Florida, who are helping us to keep the commitment that we made to the neighborhood by making sure that there will be health care in some form or fashion in that neighborhood by the partnership that we have with them to sell that 801 West Avery Street property, which they are going to turn into dental and family practice care for the community.
And we know this whole district is going to be a community-driven project. Community in terms of citizens, but also in terms of PACES, in terms of community health, in terms of Baptist or UWF or the school district or a grocery partner. For this to be successful, this is not a mayor or a city council job. This is going to be an absolute community effort. So to see that already from community health, before anything's happened, we've got low-cost dental and healthcare in the neighborhood that helps start to at least fill some of that gap, what's left behind with the Legacy campus. So there's a lot of exciting days ahead when it comes to the transformation of meeting needs in our city and in the west side of our city, and it'll take more and more community partnerships like that. So we're grateful to have them, and grateful for all the people that are enthusiastically waiting to say, you know, how can I help? How can we be part of the solution? And that's what a large project like that does. It builds this critical mass to say, man, there's lots of people that can offer something amazing to our citizens, and be that subsidy, be the person that helps fill a gap that meets a need, and they have better experience in that than a local government does, or a state government does, and so we got to lean on those partners to make our community successful, whether it's at Baptist Hospital or anywhere else in our city.
Well, sure, because as you mentioned, a subsidy doesn't have to be cash.
Right.
Our subsidy sometimes is land. It can be
rarely
some
is.
other resource that another partner has, that's important to bring to the table. So more to come for sure on that community engagement piece. We will definitely, hopefully be seeing that ramp up.
Yeah. Trust us, you'll be hearing from us. So we're excited for it.
We're excited for that for sure. Well, good conversation, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we could talk about housing forever.
We could.
I know it's the number one issue. It's the number one issue in the strategic plan, and it's something that
For
we're
a
going to
reason.
continue to aggressively attack.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah,
and thank everybody there for being with us. And we'll catch you next time.